Yo, 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 what's up, everyone? This is Vicente,
And this is Izzy.
and welcome back again to the Ivy Podcast. Now, this weekend, we have been releasing a lot of episodes. That's only because you guys have shown us so much love and support for our podcast. And again, we just want to say thank you for all the love and support. So today, we're reviewing Ant-Man the Wasp. Now, beware, there will be spoilers about this movie. So if you haven't seen it, please go see it and come back to this. Or if you don't care about spoilers and you've seen this, listen ahead because we got a lot to talk about. And boy, did a lot change for my second viewing of this movie. Now, I still love it as much as I did the first time, but there are some problems that I have with it.
Oh, yeah. I did love it the first time we watched it. The second time definitely opened my eyes on some of the things that's been talked about it, but I still overall enjoyed it.
Oh yeah, it's not a bad Marvel movie, but it's not perfect. It's not as good as it should have been as the trailers made it out to be. Okay, now before we get into our positives and negatives, I'm going to try to recap this movie as best I can. I'm not going to go over the whole thing. I'm not going to explain the Ant-Man franchise. I'm not going to explain the MCU just because we'd be stuck here for like 3 hours, and I know people won't do it. Now, one day in the future, we might do an MCU ranking
Maybe.
and stuff like that. You never know. Marvel ranking, you never know, along with some DC rankings. But for now, we're just sticking to this movie. Okay, so starting off, this movie explores Scott's life after Endgame. He's been very successful, and he's garnered fame and love from the public and everyone. He's even wrote a book about the events of Endgame, talking about his time with Rocket Raccoon and basically all the Avengers, most notably Captain America. But he's also losing touch with his daughter, Cassie, who's becoming just like him, getting arrested for damaging a police vehicle and peaceful protesting. And so whenever Scott tries to help her, she pushes him away and reminds him, you can't tell me anything. You basically lost all the time with me when you're trapped in the quantum realm. And Janet's back into the picture, but she doesn't want to talk about the quantum realm, as if she's hiding a secret about it, which is understandable because I'm pretty sure shit happened in that quantum realm that she doesn't want to talk about. Anyways, before I get off topic. So, flash forward, and Cassie talks about a machine that she built to help people in need in the quantum realm without having to physically go there, but it's a two-way radio. And as soon as Janet hears that, she freaks the F out and tries to destroy the machine. She unplugs it, but everyone gets captured in, they all get sucked in. And then we get these two convoluting storylines, which I will get to in my positives and negatives. One storyline, we get Cassie and Scott trying to help these freedom fighters fight against someone that they refer to as him, or the Conqueror, however you want to say it. And then we get another one with Janet, Hope, and Hank, where they meet some of Janet's old allies, they meet new allies, and then introduced to this one character. I don't know the name of it, but I know it, but I don't want to butcher it really bad. So the character is played by Bill Murray, who had a somewhat of a weird relationship with Janet in her time during the quantum realm. And so they team up with him only for him to backstab him to work with the all-time villain of this movie, who they keep referring to as him and the Conqueror. And they escape from his clutches, and Janet reveals the whole spiel. She reveals that the person that they keep referring to as him or the Conqueror is Kang. Now, Kang is a very powerful Marvel villain. Like, he makes Thanos look like a complete bitch. I'm only watching how I cuss in case kids watch this. So if I drop the F-bomb and stuff like that, I am sorry. But yeah, like Thanos is weak compared to Kang. I will always say my top 5 Marvel villains will be Kang the Conqueror, Doctor Doom, Magneto, Green Goblin, and then Thanos. Because Thanos is cool, but Kang is so much better. So yeah, before I get off topic again. So yeah, she reveals that she was trying to help him escape the quantum realm, and Kang promised Janet that if you help me escape from the quantum realm, all those years that you were trapped here and missed out on Hope's life, your daughter's life, I will give you back those missing years. And she helps them rebuild the ship so they can escape. But the ship is connected to Kang's mind. And she sees that this man, Kang, has destroyed universes, timelines, has conquered a lot. Hence the name Kang the Conqueror. And he was banished by a group of people. And ever since in the quantum realm, he has conquered everything in the quantum realm. He has his own little section called Battle World. And holy crap, Kang is scary in this movie. Like he will beat the crap out of you. And so Janet traps him, destroys the ship, destroys the battery life, and escapes from Kang's clutches. And then we move on to Scott and Cassie. They get captured by Kang's bounty hunter called MODOK, who's an interesting character in the Marvel Comics too. But then it's revealed that it's Darren Till from the first Ant-Man, the villain Yellow Jacket, who got trapped in the quantum realm. So he captures them and brings them to Kang, and Kang offers the same offer he gave Janet a long time ago. If Scott helps Kang escape the quantum realm and brings him what he wants, all the years he was trapped in the quantum realm, he will get back the years so he can spend it with Cassie. That's all I'm going to say about this movie, because we will spoil some middle acts in the end and our positives and negatives. Izzy, you want to add anything else?
I'm good. But let's start with our positives. So one of the biggest positives that we have is Jonathan Majors as King.
Jonathan Majors is a big up-and-coming actor. I loved him in Lovecraft Country, and he's going to be in Creed 3. Hence, I will say, I love the Rocky franchise and the Creed franchise, and I hope I find time to review the entire saga, because I love boxing, I love combat, I love that type of stuff, so be on the lookout in the future for that stuff. But anyways, Kang is fucking terrifying in this movie. Holy crap. Like, the MCU Thanos would crap his pants if he saw this Kang. And for this being the weaker variant of Kang, and he has killed Avengers and conquered timelines, just imagine his other variants, like Immortus and all of them. Like, crap, I have nothing else to say. He's literally the perfect MCU villain, and I can't wait to see what he's going to bring to this multiverse saga.
Yeah. If you're looking for a scary villain, this is the one. Like, Thanos, he was a big purple guy. Kang, he actually looks like he could do some shit to you.
Yeah.
Alright. That brings us to our second positive, which is the design of the creatures in the quantum realm.
Yeah, so you might hear some reviewers or people just say, this feels like a Star Wars askew movie. It does, but not in a bad way. Like, a lot of the creatures in this movie from the quantum realm is something that you see in a Star Wars movie. And honestly, that's perfect. This is how I would envision what the quantum realm would look like if it had life in it. And it's cool, and you get to see all these creatures, all these ships. It gives off that cool Star Wars feeling. Like, it sucks that this is a better Star Wars movie than the sequel trilogy that came out by Disney. The only good one in that trilogy was Force Awakens. The other two, I have mixed feelings on, but again, I will review Star Wars one day when the time comes.
Yeah. Like, for example, one of the scenes where they're in a really dusty area, it reminds me a lot of Tatooine, the design of those characters, which isn't a bad thing. But one of the things that helped in this movie is to remind yourself that they're little like cells, so you see all these creatures who remind you of these cell designs.
Yeah, so the next time you see bacteria or anything under a microscope, that's probably a human being or a creature from the quantum realm.
Mm-hmm. Alright, so our third positive is Paul Rudd's best acting so far.
Yes, when you see him come from this con man in the first Ant-Man movie to like kind of like a dorkish dude in the second Ant-Man movie, and then Endgame, and in this movie, Paul Rudd does the best he can. He is good. He's probably the second main highlight of this movie alongside Jonathan Majors. You can tell he gives it his all. You know, from him being a comedy actor and doing comedy movies, he sure can do pretty serious stuff in this movie and just a lot of serious acting.
Yeah. Like, one of my favorite scenes that he acts in is at the very end with him and Cassie during the battle. It just brings warmth to our heart with the acting that he does.
Yeah, like his face emotion just says it all. It's like as if a real life dad was proud of their child doing something amazing and finally standing up for themselves. And I know I gave props to Jonathan Majors, but Paul Rudd, you killed it in this movie. And I am happy that the MCU has an actor like you.
Yeah. So this brings us to our fourth positive, which is the final battle.
The final battle, holy crap. I will say, this is a little taste of what we're going to get in Kang Dynasty and Secret Wars. And I'm willing to bet this is what I think how I think Kang Dynasty is going to play out. It's just going to be with our main Avengers that we know, Sam Wilson's Captain America, Spider-Man, Moon Knight, Thor, She-Hulk, Daredevil, all those people that we know right now. Shuri as Black Panther. It'll just be about them fighting other variants of Kang. I think in a way they'll win in the end, but then it's going to be revealed that there's another more powerful Kang variant, which I will talk about later on in this video. And he's going to F up the multiverse. We're going to see multiverses cracked, and I think we're going to see all the heroes get transported to Battle World, and the ending shot will be other heroes from previous Marvel movies make an appearance that way in Secret Wars, which I hope has a part 1 and a part 2. We see multiple heroes fighting each other. Like, I guarantee, and I'm willing to bet so much on it, that we're going to see Tobey Maguire back as Spider-Man, Andrew Garfield Spider-Man, Hugh Jackman's Wolverine, Patrick Stewart as Charles Xavier, Ian McKellen as Magneto, Nicolas Cage as Ghost Rider, Wesley Snipes as Blade, hell, even Thomas Jane as the Punisher. We might even see Chris Evans as Human Torch, and maybe a Steve Rogers and Tony Stark variant played by Chris Evans and Robert Downey Jr. There's so much that they can do in Secret Wars now that we're in the multiverse saga. And you guys are going to get so excited. Like, this was always my dream, to see Hugh Jackman, Robert Downey Jr., Chris Evans, and Tobey Maguire share a scene together as their on-screen superhero personas.
Yeah, this brings a lot of foreshadowing of what we're going to be seeing in future Marvel movies.
Yeah, like, you think the Endgame battle was big? You ain't seen nothing yet. We're barely at the tip of the iceberg. There is so much more that you guys don't understand that I can't wait to get into. And I have future ideas for a podcast to even talk about these comic storylines. I'm just excited. That's all I can say.
All right, so that brings us to our 5th positive, which is the ending fight scene.
Yes. Even without the suit, Kang can still whoop your ass. Like, this man has been training against Creed for the Creed movie. You can see this man knows how to box and shit like that. Now, I'm going to spoil it. People complain about, oh, Kang lost to ants. Well, the thing is that the ants that beat him were highly civilized, and they just barely started civilization, so Kang could never account for them. So best believe if Kang knew the ants were going to come for them, he would have a battle plan for them. And even then, he was still giving the ants the work, the hands. He was still holding them off. It wasn't until MODOK betrays him and breaks his shield and he gets overwhelmed. But even then, he wasn't really defeated by the ants. They just damaged his suits and he escaped. So you can say he probably killed some of the ants. And even without the suit, he still kicks ass. Now, people are all like, oh, well, Tony Stark doesn't need a suit. Well, actually, he's only a badass with the suit. Yes, he can fight when he's without his suit, but he's still a human who can die from a bullet, just like Kang without his suit. But Kang is freaking terrifying. Like, he curbs Scott 2 times, breaks his helmet. And I remember I turned to Izzy and said, dude, Scott's about to die right now. There's no way he's living from this.
Yeah, I was not expecting that fight, and I was not expecting Scott to live through that, because he was getting beat. But he also was fighting about pretty well for someone who just shrinks.
Yeah, like, when you see the size comparison to Kang and Scott, Kang is ripped. Like, this man, well, granted, Jonathan Majors has been training for Creed 3, so yeah, he got buff, but he got buff for this role too. I saw his workout plan, like, holy crap, that's intense. And Paul Rudd, yes, he works out for Ant-Man, but Jonathan Majors was a beast in this movie. And this is something we haven't seen in the MCU. I mean, yes, we've had Winter Soldier do some pretty crazy fight scenes, but this one was brutal. Like, this was needed in the MCU. Like, this is something we don't see a lot. I think the last time we saw it was probably like in Moon Knight and Falcon and Winter Soldier.
Yeah. To say. All right, so this brings us to our final positive with the post-credit scenes.
Holy crap. I got to talk about the first one. The first one reveals that there are multiple Kang variants. The top 3 being Immortus, King Ramatot, and the Scarlet Centurion. Dude, I will say this. They are scary as hell. And like I said earlier in this podcast, if the Kang they fought in this movie was the weakest variant and he still managed to kill Avengers like Thor and Iron Man and other heroes in different universes, imagine what these kings will do when they come for our heroes. And they discuss about how they banished them and they wanted to kill them, and how our Earth 616 Avengers have now touched upon the multiverse, and that it's only a matter of time before they learn about it and control it and destroy everything that all the kings have worked for. So now they're setting up their army, and the screen panels out, and we see all these king variants from different universes, and this is straight up pulled from a comic strip, and I have this comic. Look it up. You know what I'm going to be talking about. Just type in Kang, Council of Kang comic strip. It is literally a scene by scene. There's even a king that looks like Doctor Doom, and King is connected to Doctor Doom. King is connected to the Fantastic Four, most noticeably Reed Richards, also known as Mr. Fantastic. He's a descendant of Mr. Fantastic, so that even makes me more excited that we might see Doctor Doom soon. Granted, I think he should be the next big bad villain, but we'll get into that sometime in the future of the podcast. And we see all these kings get excited for war, for battle, and it pumps me up. It makes me excited for the future for King Dynasty and Secret Wars.
Yeah. Seeing all those kings was a lot and makes me really excited for what King Dynasty is going to bring us.
Yeah, and if one king does that much damage, imagine trying to fight multiple variants.
And even stronger ones, too.
Like, I pray for our Avengers because they're going to need it.
Definitely.
And now our second post-credit scene was basically a backdoor pilot to Loki Season 2. We time travel back into, I want to say, the 60s or 70s.
Yeah.
We meet a king variant by the name of Victor, who's talking about an invention or something like that. But then we see in the crowd Loki alongside Owen Wilson, who plays Mobius in the Loki series. And I guarantee Season 2 will just be about Loki and Owen Wilson's Mobius hunting down multiple Kang variants and trying to keep the multiverse in order before shit goes south.
Yeah, watching that post-credit scene made me really excited for Season 2 of Loki coming out this summer.
Yeah, but as always, even though you can love a movie, there's always going to be negatives about it. No movie is perfect.
Yep, so that brings us to our negatives, starting out with the pacing being too fast and sort of odd.
Yeah, like immediately, the beginning of the movie opens up with Janet drinking water, or basically just chilling to herself. And then she sees this ship crash out of nowhere. And then she gets attacked by these creatures from the quantum realm. And she's saved by Kang, who she doesn't know what its intentions are. And then literally, not even like 30 seconds after the beginning, we literally see what Scott's life has been in modern day San Francisco. And then we don't even get the chance to see what his life is really like, because the next scene is them having lunch with Cassie, Hope, Hank, and Janet. And then immediately it's like we don't even get to learn more about them. And I'll get more into that with our negatives in the later of the list. And then we just get sucked into the multiverse of the quantum realm, and we get one storyline where Scott and Cassie want to help these freedom fighters trying to fight off Kang and MODOK. And then the other storyline is just Janet, Hope, and Hank meeting up with old allies of Janet and fighting off enemies, and it doesn't know when to pace itself correctly and let us just soak in all this information. I mean, even when Janet talks about the origins of Kang, it's like we don't get enough information, or we don't get time to just soak it all in. And then it has a problem of just balancing the humor and serious moments.
Yeah, watching the movie, it feels like they're literally cutting some of the scenes in half, and it just feels like unfinished because they want to keep bouncing between the two timelines.
Yep, and that's our first negative.
Alright, so this brings us to our second negative, which is talking about MODOK and him being underutilized and basically used as a punching bag throughout the movie.
Yes, MODOK in the comics and in the old Avengers cartoons, he was pretty terrifying. Like, he can give the Avengers a run for their money. He can go toe-to-toe with Iron Man. And I just feel like they only had MODOK in this movie as a henchman, and literally just to connect to the first Ant-Man movie with revealing that it was Darren Till, also known as a Yellow Jacket. And it sucks that he never really got his time to shine. Granted, this is Kang's movie. This is Kang's time to shine as the next big bad for our Avengers. But you got to give some love to MODOK. He's an interesting character. I love the design of him in the movie. Is very comic accurate, but he's just not taken serious enough.
Yeah, with MODOK being one of my favorite villains from the TV shows, it's really sad to see how he seems to be like a one and done villain and not giving him the time to shine that I think he deserves.
It's kind of like how I feel about Ultron and Avengers 2. Ultron was a villain that they could have used for another big bag, but that'll be a future episode of the podcast.
Yeah. So this brings us to our third negative, which is that none of the characters had any progress.
Yes, holy crap. This is what annoyed the crap out of me. Scott is still the same old Ant-Man. I mean, yes, he's still an Avenger, but in some way, I kind of wish he was like Tony Stark in Endgame, just retired. You know, you escape the quantum realm, you lose years with your daughter, because in the quantum realm, yes, you're only in it for 5 hours, but in some parts of the quantum realm, that's like 5 years or even more. You know, and Scott's still the same old Scott. Not saying it's a bad thing, but I kind of wish he was just retired in this movie. He didn't want to do anything. That he just wants to spend his remaining time with Cassie. Hank is still the same old Hank, which sucks because I like Hank Pym in the comics. He's a very good Ant-Man. He's probably my favorite version of Ant-Man in the comics. Janet feels like an entirely new character. Yes, we see flashbacks of her in the first Ant-Man, and we barely see her in the end of Ant-Man and the Wasp, you know, along with the post-credit scene. But in this movie, it's like she's only there to like explain what the hell happened to her in the quantum realm. And I get it, you know, but I wish she had more to her. She didn't feel like she added anything. And now Wasp, you know, I don't know what to say about Wasp. I'm going to get into that later on the list, but Wasp was disappointing. The only one who I feel like had any type of character development was Cassie, you know, but even then, her character development was just jail.
Yeah, Janie's character, it just felt like her story was just to add more. It wasn't really character developed per se. So this brings us to our fourth negative, which is talking about Wasp.
Yes, Hope. Man, her only character development, I guess you can say, was a new hairstyle. And even then, like, yes, she took over Hank's company, but that's not really a lie. Considering who Hope was in the first Ant-Man movie and in the second Ant-Man movie, you wanted more from her, considering that this is the last Ant-Man movie in this trilogy, and this being titled Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania, you expected more from her, but in reality, she was just there to save Scott. But even then, you can do that with other characters. It's like you could have written her out and the movie wouldn't have changed at all. You can just replace her story with someone else like Cassie. You know, so it sucks. You know, and I love that actress. She's a very good Wasp. I like her as Hope. So I'm hoping in Kang Dynasty and Secret Wars she gets shown more love before she's done with the role.
Yeah, her character was just there just to be a protector and to save Scott throughout the whole thing.
Yeah, and it sucks, but you know, like I said, I'm still holding out that Hope will get a bigger part in future movies.
Yeah, so this brings us to our final negative.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, usually we like to rehearse these things, but Izzy's going to hear this live from me. My biggest negative with this movie, as much as I love Kang and that he's the perfect MCU villain, he's the wrong villain for Ant-Man. You could have used MODOK as the main villain and Bill Murray's character as a side antagonist, you know, and build off of that story and use Kang somewhere else. But I have a theory that the Kang, because supposedly they think Kang died in the end, but I don't think he died. My theory is the Kang that we see, quote unquote, die in this movie is going to become the Beyonder. And that is going to be revealed as the main villain for Secret Wars. Now, the Beyonder is responsible for the first Secret Wars. He's an omnipotent being who's very powerful, can't die, and is hard to beat and stop. In the first Secret Wars, it's mostly he wanted to see who'd win in the battle between good and evil. And Secret Wars 2, which is what the new Avengers movie Secret Wars is going to heavily borrow from, is he gets all these multiverses to fight it out to see who's going to reign superior, who's the weakest. And that's why I think Kang was the wrong villain for this movie. Like the this movie, Ant-Man franchise is something out of a comedy. It's supposed to be lighthearted like Shazam. So by having a dark and serious character like Kang, it's kind of stupid to me because Kang is very powerful. He is scary as hell. And the way that this weaker variant was able to still put up a fight, it makes me mad that this movie just kind of pissed on him. He's the perfect MCU villain, just not a good Ant-Man villain for this movie. But I'm hoping they pay it off when he reveal that he becomes the Beyonder and he's the one that causes secret wars in this timeline. Now, Izzy, I know I kind of hid this from you, but I wanted you to hear this live from me because this is what I've been thinking about. What are your thoughts on what I just said?
Honestly, I kind of agree, especially because they want Kang to be this big, huge villain, but with using Ant-Man as a protagonist, it like makes him seem like he's a joke. So I think I would have really liked that route if they used MODOK and Bill Murray's character to be the big villain in this one, and just have Kang as a post-credit scene at the end.
Yeah, like kind of like how Loki in the first Avengers, you think he's a big bad, but then it's revealed that he was basically hired by Thanos, something like that. So we get that old school feeling. But you know what? That's just how I feel. Just to summarize it, Kang is a good MCU villain, probably perfect. He was just used wrong for an Ant-Man movie.
Pretty much.
So that was just my real time take on my last negative. So I hope Izzy enjoyed it, and I hope you guys understand where I'm coming from.
Yeah.
And that's going to conclude our film review of Ant-Man the Wasp. Is it worth it? I will say yes. Yes, it is. Granted, it's going to have problems. You might dislike it, but you can't deny it's an okay movie. Is it the best Marvel movie? No. Is it the worst? Hell no. The worst Marvel movie to me belongs to either Thor in a Dark World, Black Widow, and Eternals. I could not give a crap about those movies at all. But for me, I would rank out of 10 Ant-Man the Wasp Quantumania a 6.3 out of 10.
Yeah. So for me, I really enjoyed this movie, even watching it a second time. Does it have its issues? Yes, but it reminds me a lot about the old Marvel movies where it has a really good balance between the humor and action parts. And I would rate this movie about a 7.5.
Yeah. And it's nice that me and Izzy have different opinions because that's what makes it better. We're not going to BS you guys. We're not going to be like, oh, yeah, we love this movie. No. We're going to admit when we have problems with movies, like with Scream 6. As much as I'm going to love that movie, I'm pretty sure I'm going to have problems with it, just like I have problems with Scream 5. But that's going to be in a later podcast episode.
Yeah.
So go ahead, check out Ant-Man the Wasp. It is worth your time. And even though it's not a strong start to phase 5 of the MCU, it is still a good movie.
Yep.
All right. And that concludes this episode of the podcast. We hope you enjoyed it. Thank you to all of our subscribers. Thank you for all the love that we received. Take care of yourself. Take care of each other. Peace out. And me and Izzy love each and every one of you. Peace out. We love you all.
Bye, you guys.